Meeting of the Senate Education Committee to order. We have one item before us today, S-544, sponsored by the Senator from Greenville, Senator Loftus, who's present. Senator, we certainly want to give you a chance to speak to this. First, I'm going to call on Sally Coughlin to give us a summary of the bill. And as all of you in the audience know, I know there's several people that want to be heard. We're going to certainly allow that time, but we have 50 minutes until this meeting must adjourn. So with that, I'll call on Ms. Coughlin.
Good morning. This bill would require all school districts and charter schools to allow basically open enrollment for students residing within the district, the resident pupils, and outside of the district, the non-resident pupils, and directs district boards to adopt by rules the process for participation in open enrollment. The bill takes effect July 1 of this year, and with non-resident pupils, open enrollment commencing with the 2022-23 school year. It amends several things in statute. First of all, it adds to statute adding new language for open enrollment, which is currently not required. A number of districts do it, but it is currently not required. Section 1 of the bill, there are requirements for the school board, school districts, and schools. They've got to come up with a process for participation that conforms with certain things, like desegregation and so forth. The districts would not be required to make certain alterations to accommodate open enrollment from certain folks. District boards must provide preferential treatment in open enrollment process to certain students as delineated. It delineates the circumstances under which a district may deny resident or non-resident students permission to enroll in a particular program of school, like for having lack of space or teaching staff. It prescribes the process and timeline for schools to issue notice of decision to accept or deny an application from a non-resident student. It must include a reason why. It's got to be in writing, issued within 10 days, which I know is kind of short, if not, and say why the student was not accepted. The process for student to appeal must also be included, and they may be, if denied, they can go to the school board. And if any party agreed by the board's decision, they can appeal it to the Court of Appeals of the county. Charter schools would retain the existing ability to give enrollment priority according to whatever they have in their charter. The resident students may not be displaced by a non-resident student seeking enrollment, and students transferring to a school under open enrollment would be able to remain in that school until they completed the highest grade of that school. It also amends statute in several places, and this is kind of an interesting bill in that there's a lot of statutory references in it, so we need to pay particular attention to that. Non-resident student attendance at a charter school is addressed. It deletes restrictions and special requirements about exceeding the 20% cap. You may remember that we put some caps in there to make sure that we didn't have some issues with that. Amends qualifications for student attendance at any district without charge, and it allows students to attend schools in an adjacent county if they live closer to schools. And in that section, current statute, it adds language allowing open enrollment as an alternative to just going to school in an adjacent school with arrangements and so forth. And then lastly, it repeals sections in statute on students attending or being transferred to another district, because this would obviously have some impact on that. And a fiscal impact has been requested, and I need to say this is a pretty complex one, and so RFA is working on that, I think, with the department, and they are to, in the meantime, submit an advisory letter.
Any questions, comments, members of the subcommittee? Senator from Peterson.
I do have one quick question, and I'm supposed to know this. I know. What is a non-resident versus a resident student?
A resident student would be a student, as I understand it, that lives in the district with their parent or legal guardian. And then a non-resident student would be, let's say, a Richland 1 student that lives in Richland 1 would be a resident student. Somebody that lives in Richland 1, but, according to some of the things that are already in statute, like they own $300 of property or more, if they went to school in Richland 2 under this or current things, they would be a non-resident student, non-resident of the district.
And I'm thinking of a district that, I'm just going to use Pickens as an example. You've got the whole county as the district.
Right.
But you've got multiple high schools in there.
Correct.
Is it a non-resident going to a different high school?
No, sir.
Okay, so it would be going from Pickens County to Greenville County. As long as they're within Pickens County, they're a resident student, even though they're not zoned for a school.
Correct.
Okay,
And
thank
the
you.
bill does not, to further answer your question, the bill does not have a definition about resident and non-resident students, and so just dealing with definitions, depending on what we end up doing, might be something we'd need to deal with. Normally, we would have definitions.
Senator from Greenville.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, is the plan to just take testimony and just up through the period of time that we have, but not take any action, and that we don't have a fiscal impact and we don't have an advisory from the education? And then lastly, when would we be getting that advisory? Pretty soon?
I can't speak to that last question. Ms. Caulfield may know when we anticipate receiving the fiscal impact statement.
When I talked, RFA called the other day to say that it was unlikely that we would have it for today, and I said, well, that's certainly understandable, because this is a pretty massive undertaking. Said, but they did anticipate having an advisory letter to me, and I hope to have it today, and if not, I hope I'll have it within a day or two.
Or and
So
it's,
to the first part of your question, I'll tell you that based on discussions with Ms. Caulfield and with others who we'll hear from in a minute, there's several probable tweaks to this bill. In light of our time today, I don't know that we'll be able to address all of that because there are about 5 or 6 folks that want to be heard. So, you know, it's something that it's a pretty big undertaking. Obviously, the fiscal part is going to be something we want to look at. So,
all right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
all right. Anything else at this point? Senator from Greenville, Senator Loftus, it's your bill. We're happy to hear from you.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me just make a brief statement or two. I'll try not to give you my life's history on this, but there's 2 basic reasons that I supported this bill and introduced this bill. Number one is my own personal experience with my family and grandchildren who have experienced the benefits from having a school choice within the school system. I will tell you this, Greenville has had school choice within the district for some time now on a seat time available. So this is not entirely new for the Greenville district, and I think some of the other school districts also allow some transfer within the district with similar requirements here, seat time being a major area. So I've seen the benefits for the children. I have seen the engagement of children and parents in the educational support, both in the school from the children, especially from the middle to high school area, but engagement of the parents also. I thought it was interesting. There's a elementary school in Greenville who focuses on engineering. I think it's in Senator Allen's district over there, and the pictures the day in the newspaper the next day and on the news next day after registration, people were lined up from early in the morning. A few had camped out there to get their child in there. So that is the demand from the public area. But the other thing is we've just passed a school innovation bill this year out of the Senate. Computer sciences will be on the floor probably next week. So there's more and more innovation and opportunities within the district. We're going to have districts across the state, so we're going to have to be dealing with that. And this is one opportunity to do that. So I know there's some input and suggested tweaks and so forth that are going to have to be made to it. So I appreciate you taking up the bill.
Thank you. All right. With that, I'm just going to go down the list as I have it. If you're present and want to be heard, please come forward. Debbie Elmore, you want to be heard? You're looking at Ms. Smith. Is there somebody else that wants to go first? Whatever y'all want to do. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Good morning,
Good morning.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you for allowing us to be here today. I'd like to read, SCASA has had in their legislative platform for many years. SCASA supports a public school choice plan that is fair, equitable, and meets the needs of students and parents without placing undue hardships on districts and schools. That's been our platform for many years. Many schools, as Senator Loftus alluded to, have been doing choice in district for residents and non-residents for several years. We have submitted some changes that we would like to see to Ms. Cawthon, and would like to work with y'all on that. But we look forward to doing that. And most of it really centers around how districts would advertise and conduct the open enrollments for non-resident students, because most of them already have it for resident students. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Let me ask you a question, because I know the time aspect of this is something that's been discussed, and Ms. Cawthon made reference to it earlier. Does what she has handed us on your behalf deal with that 10-day notification issue? And if it does, what's different?
Well, it starts out by really talking about developing a procedure to advertise that they would have this option so that parents could see it, and what they would do in order, kind of like resident parents do, sort of the procedure of applying to be a part of that school district. And then we do talk about that the school districts will notify them as soon as possible. Because what you have to do is, after you get your residents, their request, you have to satisfy them, and then you see what your space availability is, and then that's when you can start allowing non-resident people to participate in the district.
Okay, and part of the reason for that question, and I'll pose it to you, but it's something I think we need to discuss. If someone doesn't like the school board's decision, the way it's written now, it says that they can appeal to the circuit court. That's a year-long process at best. So under any scenario, that child has lost potentially an entire school year. That's just something I think we need to think about.
Okay.
I don't know if
And again, you
maybe
know,
these are treated like truancy cases in a temporary hearing before a family court judge, which typically happens in a matter of weeks, right now, maybe 2 months. But if it's going to be an appeal to a circuit court judge as a non-jury matter,
well, at the end of the day, it really probably is just based on space availability.
Right.
Is what it's going to be based on.
again, like I said, just something to think about.
Okay.
Yeah, because the time aspect, that's going to play into it a lot. All right. Any other questions?
Real quickly, Mr.
Senator
Chairman.
from Greenville.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So if you have a certain number of positions for capacity, and you have an excess number of applications for that position, how do they get chosen?
Well, you know, basically how they do the interdistrict now, when you have, is that you have to follow a process, and then I guess they look at that space available, and it's probably as you have submitted your request, your application. And then if you look at out of district coming back in, that's what we're trying to establish, so that districts would have that on their website, so that parents would understand what the process was. And the thing, going back to the 10 days, the way it was written, it was sort of open-ended. There wasn't a cutoff date, like, I don't know, like January 1st to January the 15th. And so during that time, or January the 1st to January 31st, you'd have that many days for a non-resident parent to participate in filing an application. And then after that, that's after the school district has placed the in-district, because, again, school choice in the district, and you have people moving around, so they want to take care of those people, the residents first. Then outside the district, they would establish the guidelines about how that they would be selected, but I would imagine it would mostly be. Now, it also stipulates that if they've had academic issues, or if they have basically issued behavioral issues where they might have been in trouble in one district, that would play into the selection as well.
And my concern was, and what I was getting at is whether I've seen some that do lotteries or
Well, what you
something
might
along
do,
that line, and that process seems to be a little bit.
well, if you have
tweaking.
5 spots and you have 25 applicants, and it may go to that. And I think some school districts actually use a lottery method. Yes.
This is the first time I've seen this legislation. I heard the senator from Greenville mention space available basis, so you mentioned space available basis. Does this legislation include space available, or does it have any limit?
It is space available.
Okay, who determines what space is available in a school?
The school districts.
Questions? All right. Yeah, Senator from Pickens.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask a question, and I don't know, and I'm like the senator from Lexington, I just started looking at this, but what about funding? If you go out of district, is there fees that would be involved in that, or is there no fee? You understand my question?
As I understand the bill and looking through
There
what's
can be,
just
yes.
handed up, they could charge.
The district can determine what they want to charge, is that correct?
Yes.
Because the district establishes the procedures, and that would
Right.
include the fees.
And the fee, yes.
So, I'm
If they
using
charge.
Pickens and Greenville, so Greenville could say, we're gonna charge, and Pickens can say, we're not gonna charge. So a student
Correct.
going one way could get charged, and a student going the other way would not. And obviously, the state funded would follow that student. But there could be a fee in addition to that at the discretion of the boards.
School and district, I
Welcome.
think. Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
could I ask a follow-up question on that? Is there, this is the first time I'm looking at it too, and I suspect we're gonna have more subcommittee meetings on this, but I'm curious, is there criteria for what districts can charge? Or do they just get to determine that?
Without looking specifically at the section of that, I believe it says that the district can decide if they want to charge a fee.
And then if they elect to charge, there's no criteria in the bill as to what those charges should be.
Correct.
Because it makes sense. I mean, I guess because you've got education funding is probably the most complicated thing that we got to deal with, but you got the state and the local in addition to the federal. But if the local, I mean, if they're taxing their local people inside the district a certain amount in order, whether it's for bonds or whatever else, somebody in a lower taxed area shouldn't just be able to slide in at no cost. But then they also shouldn't be charged a heck of a lot more than what the people there, right? I mean, there ought to be some type of, what's the word of the year?
And I think, Senator, I think that's one of the things when Ms. Cauthen mentioned earlier in my discussions with her about the complexity of putting this financial piece together, because you've got the state component, which is fairly straightforward. You mentioned the local piece, you know, if it's based on a referendum passed in a certain area, those kind of things. So,
Okay, something to look at going
yeah,
forward.
it's forthcoming. Good. All right. Ms. Elmore, are you up now? Or-
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate that indulgence, because I wanted her to get to the amendment. I just wanted to thank you all for allowing the opportunity to speak. I represent the South Carolina School Boards Association, whose members govern the 79 school districts in South Carolina, and I just wanted to share that our association believes in public school choice options, particularly when the options are designed to increase opportunities for all children to learn in ways that best meet their needs and their abilities. We believe in the right in local boards to determine school choice options within their own districts, which I believe this bill does. It does provide a lot of flexibility to determine capacity, if they're offering a program or not, and being able to accommodate children. I will say that we are a little concerned about districts that are very small and rural and may not have a lot of options. And as we know, as those districts lose students, it compounds the ability to continue providing programs and services in those districts because those state funds leave. And most of those districts rely heavily on state funding because they don't have the local tax base. But certainly we do support the issue of having options within the public school system realm. We support that. But again, we do support having that local flexibility, and much of what's in the bill does provide for that. Of course, there are some issues that some small things that we would like to work on, and support the amendment that was just presented to you. Because a lot of districts, as was said, a lot of districts already have programs in place, timelines and things in developing how they market a school choice option program and how they work that. And it works well for them, and so we would just want to protect that. If it works well and people are being served, then certainly we would ask for that. Yes, sir.
I'm reading as you talk. People don't believe that we multitask pretty well up here. And I'm looking at this amendment, and it says a school district may deny any of its resident pupils or any non-resident pupils from other school districts if the school requested does not offer a particular program requested. What does that mean?
If if a student wants to be enrolled, I don't know, in IB, a program,
Right.
but the school doesn't offer it, then the district's not going to then have to be able to implement that program.
Okay, and I
To
think
accommodate.
I think that's covered in the section just above that, where it says that in implementing this, the school district is not required to establish any program.
That's true.
Yeah, it kind of begs the question, if the program's not there, why would they ask to transfer anyway?
Good question.
Okay,
Good point.
okay. All right, any other questions?
Just-
Senator from Greenville, yes.
I keep hearing a lot do and some do and some don't. Do we know, is there any knowledge as to about how many do and how many don't?
Well, we are actually trying to gather that now to try and figure that out, and also to get some feedback on the specifics in the bill. So I did want to mention that as well, that we are still trying to get more feedback from districts. to
Okay,
hear.
and then when they appeal, as the chairman was talking,
Thank you. Yeah, we were concerned about that as well. Whatever, if there is an appeal mechanism that needs to be put in place, that's certainly fine. I'm not as knowledgeable of the judicial system, so if there is a better route for that, I know a lot of times administrative law court gets used. I don't know, whatever that is, that's fine, and we're not going to oppose an appeal.
I would just think that
Process.
slot is held up during the pendency of the appeal. And the way the amendment is written, it allows the parties to agree to a timeline other than the timeline stated. And so it could go, on ad infinitum, and then you've got a slot there that a child could benefit from. So that's some concern.
How is, if, and anybody chime in here, our Spartanburg District 6, we have inter-district choice as it is, and we've taken advantage of that when we moved, so my child could remain at his old elementary school. But if he was denied, or somebody in a similar district that already offers that denied, how is that appeal process handled now?
That I do not know. I'm going to be honest. I don't know. Until that was brought up, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about
All right,
that.
that's
I will
something
get
we'll
that
look into.
information, though.
Sure, okay.
Does anybody, do you know? Right. No, but if the district denies it, then what is it? Okay.
There's not
There is
there's
not
not
an
a
appeal.
process of that.
Yeah.
The school board is ultimately the decision. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Elmore.
Thank you.
All right. Ann Peterson, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak in favor of S 544. I represent Yes Every Kid, an organization that believes in empowering every student to pursue the best possible education so that they can discover their talents and passions, develop knowledge and skills, and deploy their aptitudes. To achieve this, education systems need to ensure every learner receives a personalized education. S544 relates to open enrollment policies, which allow students to attend a public school of their choice, regardless of attendance boundaries. A zip code should not dictate a child's opportunity, and we appreciate your focus on this important issue. As you know, some South Carolina students already benefit from open enrollment, and this bill would merely expand that opportunity to every student in the state. Specifically, the proposal will eliminate bureaucracy and red tape, including the unnecessary requirement that the sending district release the student. It will ensure fairness by clearly outlining the situations in which a student transfer request may be denied, creating a uniform appeals process, and by eliminating the arbitrary cap on the number of out-of-district enrolled students relative to charter schools' overall enrollment. It will increase transparency by publicly releasing the number of open seats available in every district prior to the application process opening. Yes, Every Kid has worked with the Department of Education in the drafting of this provision. We believe this legislation will further empower students and families to make the best possible decision by ensuring they have more flexibility to tailor a student's educational experience within the existing public school sector. It is by building a diversity of solutions that we believe students will have the best opportunity to succeed and have a more fulfilling academic experience and ultimately a more fulfilling life. Simply put, this legislation allows parents and students more access to public learning opportunities and eliminates the burden on limiting a child's educational experience by zip code. Thank you so much for your time today and for consideration of this bill.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions, comments? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Peters.
Thank you, Chairman.
And I think, was the document you were referring to what Ms. Cawthon just handed us that's marked up in red and blue?
If it is what Ms. Nilges and I and my client talked about
Okay.
with Ms. Cawthon yesterday,
Okay.
yes, that
All
would be
right, very
it.
good. We've got that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Smith, you wish to be heard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wasn't sure this morning if you would have any parents who had experienced public school choice. So I just wanted to mention mostly that as a parent of two daughters who've enjoyed the opportunity to apply for admission to a public school for which we were not zoned. It has been a joyous experience for them, and just speaking as a parent, it's great to know and see when your children can find that they have a good match with another public school across town. So that's my main contribution. The other is Senator from Lexington may be having flashbacks. I know I am to 2013 when Senator Wes Hayes, along with many others, Hayes, Setzler, Matthews, Lurie, Hutto, Jackson, Rankin, Larry Martin, Odell, Malloy, Ford, Johnson, and Young, got a bill to the Senate floor, S313. It was a very comprehensive bill. It included definitions for many of those concepts that we've already talked about this morning. For instance, it defined intra transfers as school district choice programs and defined open enrollment as the transfers across district lines. So it broke those out with separate definitions that followed throughout the language of the bill. It also included a role for the department. It established district school choice committees to help determine what parents had an interest in as far as school choice within those districts, and other good things. So I would recommend to you from 2013, the 120th session of the General Assembly, S313 may have some good nuggets in there that would be helpful in this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator from Greenville, yes.
just a couple of quick questions.
Yes, sir.
In your experience, how was cost, if there was any, how was that handled? And how was selection done?
Would that be in my first part as a parent?
As a
or
parent, yes.
Yes. The only real cost to us as a family was the transportation, which was not a part of the choice benefit. So we provided the transportation. And in both of my cases, my daughters eventually were at the point where they were able to drive themselves, so that made that easier as well. My understanding is from researching the process before we became part of it was in the past in this specific district, because certain schools were so popular and it was on a first come first served basis, you literally had a mob showing up to try to be first in line, but then the district went to a lottery system. So we were assigned a number, and that number corresponded to a website, and we were able to, on a given day, find out if our number got called and if we were granted that slot. And I think the district also was very hands-on and called us by phone to let us know that we had received a magic ticket to the school that my both daughters wanted to attend. So it worked seamlessly within that district.
Senator from Pickens.
I do have one quick question. You said both your daughters went there. I'm thinking, if you attempt to enroll and you get one daughter in, but you don't have the other one in other words, is there any provision in here where siblings can go to the same school?
That was in, I think, the old 313 bill from Senator Hayes's bill. I don't know if it's in this Senator from Greenville's bill or not. I'm not a good example of that one because their ages were significantly apart, so they would never have been in the same school at the same time. But I think there are generally in this type of legislation provisions for that in a pecking order. It's one of the pecking order of what the priorities are, and it's one of those. Thank you, Mr.
Sure.
Chairman.
All right. Candace Carroll, you wish to be heard? Please come forward. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman Talmy and members of the subcommittee. My name is Candace Carroll, and I'm the Interim State Director with Americans for Prosperity, South Carolina. On behalf of the thousands of Americans for Prosperity activists and supporters in South Carolina, I urge you to vote yes on Senate Bill 544, a bill which would strengthen public school open enrollment policies in our state. By implementing a more open and transparent process for students to transfer into their public school of choice, Senate Bill 544 would make it easier for our families to find the best educational environment for their children, regardless of their zip code. Public school transfers have existed as long as public schools. Unfortunately, access is often limited to parents who are well-connected or who possess enough personal wherewithal to navigate an opaque system that was not designed to facilitate choice. Americans for Prosperity believes that every student deserves access to the education that meets their unique needs. For this reason, instead of leaving options open to only the well-connected or based on the whims of school administrators, we believe enrollment policies should allow for all families to easily enroll their children in any public school of their choice. The pandemic has demonstrated the need for families and students to access a broad range of options beyond their assigned traditional public school. This bill represents a step in the right direction to offer more students an educational experience that is tailored around their unique needs and talents. And it's for these reasons we respectfully ask you to move this bill forward. Thank you.
Any question? All right. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
being here. Okay. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak? Mr. Patrick? Yes, sir. Come forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. I don't have any written comments today, but for those of you that know me well, know that I'm a father of 5 children, 2 of which are special needs children that we adopted from Russia 11 years ago. As a father, we've taken advantage of every educational opportunity and based on the needs of our child at the time. So we've homeschooled, we've public schooled, we've private schooled, we've special needs public schooled. For those 2 boys that we adopted, and I'll say that we've never chosen the same school for our children based on the zip code that we live in at any one time. So we've had them all over the place based on their particular need. We've taken advantage of the South Carolina School for the Deaf and Blind, of course, for our son that is deaf. Right now, we have a situation. We live in Richland 1. We have one of our sons who is deaf does not attend the school that he's zoned to attend. Richland 1 has a special program at one of the high schools in the district that he takes advantage of. That school or the district has a multi-district agreement with several districts, Richland 2, Lexington 1, and I don't know how many others in specifically. But all of those kids from those surrounding districts are able to take advantage of the program available through Richland 1 through that multi-district agreement. And I'm sure that multi-district agreement is readily available for parents who parent a child who has special needs or is deaf, but I can't find it. And furthermore, it's incumbent upon that sending district to provide transportation if they wish, or if the parent wishes. Many parents choose to transport their child on their own. So while it's available, they don't take advantage of it for any given reason. We're fortunate that we're able to take advantage of the transportation that's provided. And I'd simply say that even our daughter attended a charter school in Lexington 2, Senator Setzler, and she wasn't zoned to attend that school, but she had the opportunity to attend that school because it was a statewide authorized charter school. So I think to just wrap up, parents need opportunities. They want opportunities. Those opportunities are available, but they're not available to everybody. And they should be available and they should be equitable. And that was the intent of this bill, is to try to achieve that for all families across the state. I'd be happy to take any questions if there are any.
I don't have a question, I have a comment when you finish.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, have anybody talked to or heard from the public charter schools about this? I notice I don't see anybody here from the public charter school. Okay. At some point, I think we need to hear from them, Mr. Chairman.
We got some time if it's the will of the committee. You want to be heard, Mr. Pulaski?
Sure. Thank you, Chairman Talley.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to say that this is the first time we've seen this bill. Don't know if there's a fiscal impact affiliated with it. I've heard from a couple of our attorneys that would like to speak with the members of this committee before you move forward with it, and to maybe meet with our colleagues back here to see about vetting it before you move forward. So I would ask you to carry it over until we have that opportunity.
Okay.
I had one other point, Mr. Chairman, when he's finished.
Okay. Anybody else? No. Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Noted. Thank you. Yes, sir. Senator from Lexington.
It would appear to me that, and again, this is the first time I've seen this year, if we're talking about choice, I want to be sure we're talking about choice for education excellence, and we're not going to get into a situation where basketball coach A or soccer coach B is out recruiting the point guard at another high school to come to that high school. So I don't know how we do that, but this ought to be about educational excellence only, in my opinion.
Senator from Pickens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Senator from Greenville actually brought to my attention, we talked about funding a minute ago. He brought to my attention the fact that this legislation actually repeals 596345, which talks about transfer from one district to another and funding on that. And I looked at the language in there, and I'm actually, when I read the language, I wonder when this was written, and because it looks like to me there's a credit that's available based on if you go to a different district, that you're paying whatever that per child tax is that's collected by that school district, less a credit for whatever you paid in your home district in real property tax. And I'm guessing that's for the school. I think it is for the school. And so I don't know. And I'm wondering if Act 388, in other words, this language, if you go to 388, you really get a credit for your taxes. And I guess it's referring to your home property, not all taxes. I don't know. It's a little confusing to me what all that includes right there. And so if we may want to look at that and see.
And I did a little bit, and that was a piece of why I was mentioning that with so many pieces of statute that are either referenced or alluded to. But if you look at this part of the statute, 596330 is qualifications for attendance for anybody in general. It says the child resides with the parent or guardian is a resident of the district, or, and this is the link to 45, the child owns property of $300 or more. And so I think the way this reads is that if you've got the $300 reason as being in the district, that I think that's when the reimbursement kicks in, but we can certainly take a look at that because it does need to be absolutely clear.
Yeah. Well, if this was written prior to 388, which I don't know, and isn't that right? 388 is our property tax relief.
Okay.
So you're getting a credit for property tax paid. Am I reading that right? I mean, I may be off base on this, but I'm just trying to.
It's oddly constructed, and it's.
I mean, my children don't own property either.
And I'm just assuming that people do, and the $300 thing has been in statute, I think, a pretty good while. The history only shows 596330 is being placed at 62. So anyway, I think
I may be like you. I may be totally off base, but I remember the old way of doing this was to buy a vacant lot. Just put it in your child's name within the district or zone area or whatnot. But it looks like that section you're referring to goes back to 1996. So obviously that would predate 388. But we'll look at that. Senator from Greenville, yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, just want to echo quickly the senator from Lexington's comments, and I found comfort in that we were not going to act or do anything on this legislation until we had a fiscal impact and some idea of the impact this would have all throughout the district, and to know the number of districts that were participating and the number that was not participating. All of that is critical and important, as well as the point that he mentioned about the what I call taking advantage of it, athletics, coaches, etc., being able to shift for non-educational excellence reasons. If this is about academics, excellence, special needs, I get that part, but those questions certainly have to be addressed for this legislation. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is that wording in the bill as written?
Yes, preferential treatment, that's kind of odd too.
Yeah, that's scary.
And I think I tweaked that.
Okay. Okay, all right. Anything else? me ask a question. The First Amendment that was handed up, is that a strike and insert, Beth? Is that?
Looks partial.
It is? Okay. And we've got the other proposal as well. All right. Based on our questions and what's been discussed up here, is there anything anybody else wishes to add at this point? Okay. What's the will of the subcommittee as to the bill today?
Mr. Chairman, I mean, I think there are a lot of questions on this, and while I'd like to get it moving forward, I'm concerned about trying to fix it on the fly between here and full committee, and I don't even know, I mean, we're toward the end of session. Would you try to have another?
Well, I think it's certainly something that's of interest. It does need some work, and I agree with you. I don't think this is one that we send up and try to do on the fly. I would encourage everybody to look at what's been submitted to us today, and certainly staff with stakeholders will continue to try to work on some language. Whether we're able to meet again during our regular session, I don't know, but I certainly would like to meet again, so it may be that we look today that we come back for budget issues or something like that to discuss this. We've got some time, obviously, but I do think it's something important that we want to continue to work on.
I'd rather meet sooner than later.
Sure.
Not wait till next January on
Right.
it. So you agree with that, is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I know we haven't talked about it yet, but just amongst our colleagues, I think, there's going to be several things that may be addressed in a sine die resolution this year that are outside of the norm, just based on, where we are and things that we want to do. So, however, that needs to be crafted such that we can continue this work. I'm fully supportive.
Okay. With that, I'd make a motion. We carry it over today and meet at the will of the chair.
All right. Motion by the senator from Pickens, seconded by the senator from Greenville. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? And we will carry this over. Senator Massey's proxy votes in favor of that. And we'll carry this over subject to the call of the chair. Thank you all very much.